Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Friday, September the 12th. And welcome to our commentary. Welcome to our good friend George Rodriguez from South Texas joining us. George, it's always a pleasure to have you. How's the weather in San Antonio?
Today it's rather warm. It's been very pleasant the past few days. We had a cool front come through, and it was in the mid 80s, very low humidity, and that was wonderful. But now we're back to South Texas weather, and it's hot and humid.
You know, whenever I would say to my friends from Wisconsin that we have a cool front in Texas and the temperature dropped to 65, they would laugh because that would be a warm front
Yeah.
for many of them. So, I guess it always depends where you are when you're talking about the temperatures. Well, a couple of topics that I want to get into today. The primary topic, of course, is Charlie Kirk. We know what happened. Terrible situation, very sad family situation, a young widow, a couple of kids. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that. And then I want to talk a little bit about some numbers that came out about the Texas primary, both Democrat and Republican. So let's talk about Charlie Kirk first. I never knew him. I only saw him. I saw what he did. I never actually went to one of his programs in colleges, but I saw what he did. I did watch a few. I did watch a few of his presentations on YouTube because they would record them and you could watch them. And I was always so impressed with what he was doing. Not so much his political point of view, but what he was doing in the sense of going out to the universities and changing the playbook. It used to be at the universities, and maybe you remember this because I remember this. You would have a speaker come, they go to an auditorium, they give a speech from the lectern, and they give a speech. And then at the end of the speech, maybe they had a chance for a couple of questions, maybe. And that's it. That's the thing. Charlie Kirk didn't do that. He literally sat down in a chair with a microphone and had two microphones, and he asked people to come ask him questions, and he would encourage people who disagreed with him to ask him questions. In fact, that was really his strength, was talking to people who didn't agree with him. And unfortunately, they shot him exactly as he was doing that. So, just your overall sense just how you reacted to it. I mean, how you heard about the news. Or any memories of Charlie Kirk that you may have. So share that with us, George.
Well, I met Charlie a couple of times. I was not an intimate friend by any means, but I had met him a couple of times. Once at an event in Phoenix when he was just starting out. I met him. Very amiable young man. Very, very full of life. Very, very ready to absorb and listen. He wanted to know about podcasts. He wanted to know about what kind of show I had. Then I met him again a few years later in Washington, D.C., again at another broadcasters event, conservative broadcasters event at the Federation for American Immigration Reform. And we chatted briefly there. He was a very big rising star at that point. And we chatted about the problems with immigration at that point. He was very, very fascinated to have a Latino point of view. But that's how I had met him. How I found out yesterday or a day before yesterday, I was working on a podcast. I was doing some research online, and I got a quick little blurb that came over the internet on Facebook, somebody claiming that Charlie Kirk had been shot. At first, I thought that he had just been shot at, which didn't surprise me at all,
right,
that he had been shot at. But then there was clarification, and there were a couple of more notes or messages that came up on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and then on Twitter and on TikTok. And at that point, I said, "This is serious." Then there was the news on TV that he had been shot, And then there was that horrific, and I mean really horrific, video that somebody took of the shot of the bullet hitting his neck. And I'll tell you, Silvio, the thing that really upsets me about that video and about social media in general at this point is how that is going to be something that will be out there in the public domain forever now, even when his little children reach an age when they can research or where they can look at social media on their own, they probably will find it and see it.
Right.
It's my understanding that this guy, like many young people across the country, was radicalized because of the media, because of social media. This morning they were talking about how much evidence is beginning to pile up about this guy, and how the only defense that he may have to avoid the death penalty, because Utah has the death penalty, is that he or that they will claim that he is mentally disturbed.
Right. That's what I heard too, that they're going to have to prove that.
There you are.
Yeah. And, you know, they may be able to, I don't know. But here's the thing, just to kind of match what you were saying. I was actually watching, my wife and I had lunch, and one of our grandchildren had been brought over. And so I was literally, you know, I had him on my lap, and he's like 1 year old. So I was watching the baseball game between the Milwaukee Brewers and the Texas Rangers. And I'm sitting there watching the game. And same thing. I get a flash saying that he's been shot. You know, I said, okay, well, gosh, I hope he's okay. But then a friend of mine who's a journalist sent me that video, I think, that you're talking about, that, you know, and when I saw the bullet here, and I said, oh my God,
there's no way that he could have.
Yeah, I mean, pray as much as you can, but it's probably going to be very difficult. For one thing, you probably bleed to death, if nothing else. But yeah, I mean, it was, I guess it's shocking because, you know, I guess in a way too, I was thinking about security, you know, I don't want to get critical at a time like this, but, you know, I don't know if you're Charlie Kirk, maybe
you're a private individual. That's the whole headache there, is that he is a private individual who has a private company, and he provides his own security. Plus, the fact that he depends on the host to provide the security, and most of the times the host is going to be a student group at a college. And I'm sorry, but you know, you're going to have amateurs directing amateurs, in that aspect of it. So, you know, it was really, you know, I just think that, you know, we can worry about the security, but in a situation like that, you know, you're gonna encounter problems, and you try to minimize them as best you can.
Yeah, I mean, and then of course this particular shot came from
a distance.
Yeah, 200 yards, I think they said. Which when I heard that it was 200 yards, I said, "Oh my gosh!" I mean, I couldn't shoot something 200 yards away. I mean, I don't think too many people can. I don't know what kind of rifle this guy had. Do you know what kind of rifle he had?
They said it was a hunting rifle, a hunting style rifle.
Yeah, but that's going to be a pretty powerful rifle. Because
It's going to be powerful, and it probably had a scope.
Right, but even so, I was listening to an arms, you know, one of these gun experts, and he was saying that from that distance, 200 yards, that you really got to know what you're doing, because the bullet apparently is impacted by the wind at a distance like that. So it's not like, you know, it's not like you're shooting in a vacuum where, you know, where you just aim your gun. I mean, there's other factors that come into play, the wind and all of that. And he shot right on target. I don't know if he was trying to hit him when we actually hit him, but
well, he was I'm sure he was trying to hit him in the head.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, but anyway, it was just an absolutely horrific. And then I heard the news that he, I guess a bit later, that he had died, and it was just shocking. I mean, it was like, for me, it was shocking. And then, and then of course you move to the next point, and that is, I'm glad they caught this guy alive. And I guess his father turned him in, from what I understand. But I'm glad they caught him alive, George, because for one thing, there's going to be a lot of FBI people who know what they're looking for and who are good at interviewing these people.
Yeah,
And
the motive.
Yeah, and they can get into his head and really try to figure out what killed him, what got him to do this. Obviously, when I saw the picture of George this morning, maybe you had the same reaction, but I saw this guy's picture and I said, this kid looks like one of the people who used to play Little League Baseball with my sons. You know what I mean? That kind of kid, just another suburban kid that we've all grown accustomed to. And something must have triggered. I mean, something happened that he decided that it was in the best interest of the world, I guess, to eliminate Charlie Kirk. So that's why I'm anxious to get a mental study of this guy, because I think that we as a society, I will tell you, and I mentioned this on Univision not long ago, you and I have been doing this stuff on TV for a while. And I mentioned that I didn't hear anything about Hitler or being a fascist or even being a racist. That stuff didn't come up 10 years ago. At least in my case, when I was debating Democrats when Obama and McCain, Romney and McCain, Bush and Gore, Bush and Kerry, that kind of thing. We were all debating on TV, but no one ever said that Bush, at least not in a serious. I mean, I know that there were always wackos in the corners doing that, but I'm saying seriously on a political podcast, nobody would ever say that Bush is Hitler or Romney is Hitler, because I think that if they did, they all knew that they'd be condemned, probably never invited on the show again. And yet today, that's all they say when they go on TV, George.
It's acceptable. It is acceptable. The incidents that I have been involved in, I have been speaking at events. And I was speaking, for example, at an event sponsored by Texas Monthly Magazine, which is a very prestigious publication here in Texas, at the University of Texas, which is a prestigious university in Texas. And because I took a very, I guess, in their terms, a hard line on the issue of immigration, the students, there were students and professors that just lost their minds and were screaming and yelling at the top of their lungs, calling me a Nazi, calling me a racist, calling me a white supremacist. And that happened about 8 years ago. More recently, there was another situation when I was the Tea Party president. And again, this was an event sponsored by the Texas Public Radio, a prestigious organization. And it was geared for high school students. And again, because I took a conservative view of immigration, I had a teacher, and it made national news. I had a teacher that got up and called me a racist in front of all his students. And, again, I mean, name calling and asserting something that I'm not. Right. Another event more recently that I spoke at Rice University, where I had to be escorted by a couple of police officers to my car afterwards because there were some folks that wanted to beat me up. So, I mean,
and all you were saying was, I assume all you were saying was that immigration laws should be respected.
Exactly. Or I mean, I was not saying anything regarding race, color, or gender, or creed, right, national origin. I was saying that anybody who is an illegal alien, anybody, should be deported.
Right. Not too much different, frankly, from what, for those who enjoy going on YouTube, check out Bill Clinton's State of the Union address,
exactly,
in 1996. And you'd be, my gosh, if you read the text of that address, you would think that Donald Trump wrote it.
There is no sense of history, though,
right,
among these folks. There is emotion. and there is a repetitiveness of what they've heard, and that you would discuss your view on why. First of all, tell me why I'm a racist, other than
Right.
I'm disagreeing with you
Well,
and what I want the laws enforced.
yeah, and that is something I've encountered myself. Where I say to because they call you racista. That's their favorite word,
Mm.
and I say, okay, well, time out. Do you know me personally? I always ask them. I said, do you know me personally? Do you know anything about me at all? Uh, I mean, if I'm going to call somebody a racist, I better know something about them.
Exactly.
I mean, I've met racist people in my life, actually, on just about every group. There's racist people in every group. It's not like
Well,
only.
they refuse to believe that, though.
I know,
They
and
really do refuse to believe that.
it's absolutely unacceptable. But I know because I've encountered that too. But I mean, so I always say, okay, so you're calling me a racist. Do you know me personally? I
What's
mean,
your evidence?
yeah, I just met you 5 minutes ago. So how do you? Well, you're a racist because of what you're saying about immigration. I said, okay, let me tell you what I'm saying about immigration, and that's when I always quote Bill Clinton, and then that really blows their mind because they have no idea that Bill Clinton ever said that,
Yeah.
and it wasn't that long ago. And I said, look, I love immigration. I think it's great for the country. In fact, the country's better off because we have immigration, but it has to be legal.
It's got to
It
be
has to be
controlled.
orderly. It has to be controlled. You can't just let people in with a little piece of paper to see a judge. That's not immigration. That's something else, but not immigration. But they lock in on that. But that's the kind of thing, George, that you take a young man like this,
Correct.
raised in what appears to be a very nice home, nice suburban home in Utah, by apparently very nice parents, living a pretty prosperous life from what I can tell. And then you take a young man like this who's a little confused, and he turns on the TV and he hears that Trump is going to cancel the next election. I mean, no evidence of that whatsoever, other than somebody said it. Or, Trump is a fascist, or Trump is Hitler. I had that done to me one time, by the way, the Hitler thing.
Yeah.
And I said, you made a mistake in telling me about dictators, because I actually know something about one. I actually lived under a dictatorship, and you probably have never lived under one. And I, so, but again, I think my point is that you and I understand that it's a bunch of the nonsense, but this young man,
Exactly.
that's the kind of garbage that is coming out, unfortunately, of very serious media sources. I mean, MSNBC, on the day of
they do it regularly.
yeah, but
They do it
MSNBC
regularly on there.
well, MSNBC was shameful
Yes.
on the day that Kirk was killed. I mean, you have this guy saying, well, he's very I guess aggressive in what he says,
Controversial and insensitive. That
Yeah.
he was insensitive.
but that's the kind of garbage. As I say, you and I hear that and we go, oh my God, here we go again. It's like, they only know one song and they're singing it every time. But unfortunately, some of these young people, and that's why I really want the FBI to get into his head and know at what point and what did he listen to that made this happen. Because listen, I mean, you were talking about Charlie Kirk and the movement he's created. Charlie Kirk has a huge movement, and it's going to go on. This thing is not, I mean, I know he won't be around, obviously, and he was extremely important because of his personality and how he does things. But the movement is going to go on because these young people are on board and they're going to continue doing this. But these guys are a very small group. I mean, these dangerous guys are a very small group compared to the million who follow Kirk. But this young group that is radicalized, George, they're the ones who are killing.
Yep.
Whether it's this guy or whether it's that person in Minneapolis or the person in Nashville. Now, they had other issues with their gender identity and all of that, I know. But they were radicalized as well.
They were emotional. They were emotional. This situation with this kid, from what I was listening to earlier today, people are starting to step forward. His roommate, for example, and they are claiming how radicalized he had become in the past year or so. And that right there is indicative of the impact of the media, that he
Absolutely.
was what he was listening to, and how was he reading anything? That's the other thing. No, he wasn't really reading anything. He was listening
Right.
and he was watching, and those things. I mean, his own roommate. Oh my gosh! I mean, after the evidence that they found yesterday, I'm not sure. How this poor guy is going to get off of.
Oh,
Uh,
he's not. I mean, he's going to be found guilty. Maybe,
yeah,
maybe they'll do the insanity thing. I
that's
don't know.
it.
I don't.
That's
I
the
don't know.
only
It's
thing. That's
the only
what they're
thing.
talking about.
But they're still going to get to the evidence. They're still going to get to why he did what he did.
And he's wrote a lot.
Yeah.
He printed a lot of stuff. He posted a bunch of stuff, and all of it was radical,
Right.
leftist radical stuff.
But I think of my three sons are a little older than him, of course. But I'm thinking of my three sons, like when they went to college. All right, I knew that. Of course, they were going to Texas A&M, which is that's not exactly. I mean, it's a pretty conservative place. I know.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's not Columbia, but still, you go to Texas A&M, and there are some liberal professors but that's fine. Most of them are pretty responsible people. But here's the thing: when they went to college, I knew that they were going to run into this liberal left-wing garbage, and the advantage my three sons had was my parents. Well, pretty much, I mean, these guys, every weekend when we got together with my parents, my sons understood communism and socialism better than 90% of the kids in the country. And that's probably true of a lot of Cuban kids or kids of Cuban parents, because it's something they talk in your house. You understand? I mean, at my parents' house, I mean, we talked about a lot of normal things, but every once in a while, my mom and dad would bring up, make sure that these kids understood why I came and why they came. So they kind of knew a little bit about socialism that unfortunately a lot of these kids don't know. I mean, when they hear
They are so
socialism,
removed. I mean,
they are.
The baby boomers, our generation in America was, 2-3 generations removed from immigrant parents,
Right.
who followed the American dream. These kids that we're looking at now are 6 and 7 generations
Right.
removed from the immigrant experience and from the Depression, from the war, from World War II. I mean, they have no knowledge even of the Soviet Union having existed.
Right. They don't
They
even have knowledge of 9/11. That's another thing.
yeah,
Too.
that's even worse.
Yeah, because that was 24 years ago, and that's kind of hard to believe that it was 24 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, most of these kids were born either after 9/11 or they were too young to associate anything with it. So the whole idea of radical stuff like that, they don't know anything. To them,
The idea of Mandami being supported in New York after 9/11.
yeah, that's another thing. So I guess, to move on to the next topic, but I guess if there is a silver lining to all of this, and that's kind of hard to say, and I say that painfully because my gosh, you got a young widow with a couple of kids. I don't know how anything can be silver lining up to that, but if there is something good that could come out of this, is that I think we're going to be able to understand what is motivating these kids, and I hope that some of the media.
I hope it can be addressed.
I hope so.
I really.
And I
do.
think that I know MSNBC in particular. What I kept I don't watch it, but I kept seeing clips. Man, those people should be embarrassed. Anybody advertising in that
Painful.
station? Yeah, everybody who advertising in that station needs to take a look at their budget and say, first of all, they don't get an audience anyway. So why in the heck am I advertising in this place for that garbage? So I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to tell people where to advertise, but MSNBC, of all of the three, they're the ones that were most irresponsible, I thought.
I agree.
And to even bring up the idea, George, that it's because Charlie Kirk would say some things that therefore, he would provoke somebody to shoot him. That's unacceptable.
It's incredible.
Yes.
That is like saying, well, but that's the same argument that I heard during the George Floyd riots.
Oh, gosh.
Was that it's just let them steal what they want, let them riot and steal because ultimately it's just stuff.
Right.
You shouldn't kill them for that. You shouldn't
Right.
injure
Or
them
arrest them. Or
or
arrest
arrest them
them.
for that. It's
Yeah.
just stuff. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, one thing I heard
almost-
during the looting, during the George Floyd looting, one thing I heard was, well, you know, these large companies have insurance policies
yes,
to cover this. And I was saying to myself, yeah, they do. They do have insurance company, but that's going to drive up the cost of the next time you walk into that
exactly.
store, it's
They
going to
wonder
drive
why.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
wonder
wonder why.
why people leave those neighborhoods.
Well, that's the other thing too. A lot of those neighborhoods. I remember the story of, again, during the Floyd riots, the story of a guy in Baltimore when they had all those problems. And actually, that wasn't Floyd. That was that other person in Baltimore who was involved. I don't remember the name now, who was arrested, and there were riots. And one guy who had a carpet company, or not company, but they sold rugs in Baltimore. He just said, "I'm picking up and moving. I'm not coming back here." And they tried to get him to come back, and he said, "No way, I'm not going back." So he went out to, I guess, to Virginia, wherever he went, but he didn't go back to Baltimore. So that's a loss, tax loss for the city of Baltimore. That business is not there anymore, George.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, let's go quickly here to our next topic before we run out of time. A poll came out, Texas primary, which is going to be next March. On the Republican side, it's pretty much a dead heat right now between Paxton and Cornyn. Paxton being the attorney general, Cornyn the incumbent senator. It's a dead heat, so I have no idea who's going to pull this out. But it's a dead heat at the moment. There are, I don't know, like 23% unsure. That's pretty big, actually.
Well, even that the unsure, the 29% unsure, that's almost a third. So
That's
you've
right.
got a third, and a third.
Yeah, roughly. You're right. So that's a lot of people who maybe they won't vote.
A lot of working parts there. That
Yeah,
you can
and so how my guess is that most of them will break at the last minute, one way or the other. But that's going to be an interesting. So far, that's pretty much of a dead heat, like you say, a dead heat between Paxton, Cornyn, and not sure. those three groups. Now, when you get to the Democrat side, it's an interesting story. And O'Rourke, who's not even running, is up. Jasmine Crockett, who's not even running, she's almost in a dead heat with O'Rourke. And then you got Allred, who ran the last time. He's in third place.
He announced a couple of days ago.
Oh, he is running. Okay,
he's
in. He is. And then, of course, the latest one to announce, Taffarino of Central Texas.
Rico.
Yeah, Puerto Rico, right? Central Texas, who is a sort of not a new face, but a new face to most people.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting, and I guess this particular poll has to be name recognition, because O'Rourke is number one, Crockett is number two, and they're not running, both of those. And yet
neither is Joaquin Castro, and Joaquin Castro is down at the very bottom.
That's right. He's in the list. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's not even right. I don't know. I think I just cannot see how the Democrats can really mount a good campaign in Texas at this point. Now, particularly after this incident with Charlie Kirk, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I just cannot see how the Democrats can gain in South Texas again, can gain in the oil patches, can gain in the cities where they have defunded the police. You've got the county judge in Harris County, Lina Hidalgo, and that lady has just behaved insanely.
Right.
She has walked off in meetings. She has completely ignored requests for meetings. I really don't understand how they can win. The only people that will vote for them at this point are going to be radicals. Yeah. Radicals that will accept.
If the best you can do, I mean, if your primary shows, yeah, I mean, Crockett, O'Rourke, I mean, we've already know that he has lost 3 times. Now, the first time it was close with Cruz. That's true.
because they
But
didn't
then,
know him. Yeah, the
yeah,
first time, you know,
but the next two times, whether it's
it
Abbott
went
or
downhill.
it went downhill really fast. And then, of course, All Red, who I guess lost by 9 points the last time.
Yeah.
And then Taparino. Um, I always, for some reason, every time I say his name, I'm reminded of an old baseball player, Joe Pepitone. For some reason,
Yeah.
every time I say his name, I'm reminded of that baseball player. Uh, is he Italian, by the way?
Tallarico, yeah, Tallarico is he's from Georgetown,
Oh, okay.
between Austin and Waco there.
So it's Italian last name. That's what I
Yeah,
figured it was. Yeah, but he's an interesting fellow because he is supposed to be the face of the party.
correct.
He's now basically running against both parties, from what I can hear in his presentation. He's against everything that the parties stand for, which I don't understand. Then why is he running as a Democrat? Why doesn't he run he might do better as an independent, actually, or at least have more credibility? Because if you're
Exactly.
saying both parties are screwing us and the billionaires are holding us down,
He's very, very anti-Trump.
yes, that I figured.
That is one thing. But then again, it's fascinating to me that the Democrats, the party of diversity, has it seems like so many of them are now pinning their hopes on Tallarico, who is a white male heterosexual. And so I'm confused. I'm confused.
And a pastor or a minister, right? I understand.
And a minister. He
Yeah.
also quotes the Bible regularly. So
right, which it's going to be interesting when he does that in a Democrat primary.
yeah,
I can just imagine the debate, and then he pulls out a quote out of the Bible, and everybody's looking at each other saying, "What are you doing?" But what's interesting though is that poll that I sent you that we're talking about has the overall race right now. It's kind of a generic race, Republican Democrat, has it 48 Republican, 43 Democrat, which again is still some people unsure. But when you are at 48% in a generic vote, you're not that far from 50. And it really highlights the problem that the Democrats have.
they do.
That there's a certain roof or ceiling that they can't go over.
That's right.
And I'd be surprised if any Democrat in this campaign gets the 45%, George.
Well, and there's also the situation, Silvio, if the legislature eventually pushes forward something that they've been talking about, that several of the legislators have been talking about, where they want to do away with mail-in ballots.
Mm-hmm.
If that happens, the Democrats are really, really in trouble.
Yeah.
They're going to absolutely freak out.
Now, does that mean that absentee ballots, I mean, like, for example, people who are sick or something, they can still vote? They can still vote, right? If you're like,
well, they would have to have some kind of
medical excuse,
medical excuse, as well as verification from a local judge, a local voting judge.
right?
And right now, all you do is just fill it out, send it in.
Send it in, and of course, we still have the 2 weeks to vote. So if you're going to be out on a business trip, for example, during those 2 weeks, you can prove that, I suppose, by going to a judge and filling out absentee. But I like the way we vote in Texas: 2 weeks in person, early vote, and then you've got, of course, the day of the election, and then there's this absentee option, which I can see if somebody's ill using it. I can see that in the case of an illness or if there's special travel or whatever. But I still wonder, when you look at that primary roster for the Democrats, O'Rourke hasn't decided to run, and I don't think he will. I mean,
I think he knows better. I think people, he seems to be a very, very stubborn person. Okay. So I'm not sure that if people are talking to him and telling him not to run, that he's actually going to listen. But I'm pretty sure people are telling him, don't run anymore. Yeah. Please don't run.
Which then takes us to Jasmine Crockett, who may be the wild card here.
Yeah.
She may just be,
well, she says that she is, though.
But as the wild card, she's probably fits the party better than anybody else on that list.
Exactly. I mean, if anybody could carry the banner of current radical Democrats, it's her.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I would agree with that. By the way, I want to thank this fellow Michael who put in a couple of comments in there. Thanks, Michael. But I just wanted to say that to me, Crockett is probably where the fire is in that party right now.
Yes.
I mean, that's where
there's no smoke there. It's lots of fire.
Lots of fire, and that's she's the one who I think would probably turn him on at the moment. She's not going to win, but she would be. Let me put it this way: she'd be exciting to watch. I'll put it that way. Yeah, she'd be exciting.
I'm sure either Cornyn or Paxton would enjoy
debating her, and of course, it depends what accent she's going to bring to the debate. Because this is another thing about Jasmine Crockett.
She'd be talking South Oak Cliff.
Well, but she's so phony. This is the thing about this lady that is so phony. You listen to some of her videos 3 years ago, and she sounded like actually, an articulate young lady who went to expensive private schools and a very expensive private college and got an education. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, that's a pretty good role model if you want to. If you want to know
a good role model, yes,
right. And then now she's become like this ghetto baby, where she's gonna be like a
militant ghetto baby.
Yeah, and you sit there and you go, okay, Jasmine, which one are you? And they're
talking to today.
Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna have to figure out which Jasmine is going to show up to the debate. And honestly, I'll tell you something about Jasmine Crockett. She's not. Colin Allred is a heck of a lot smarter than she is.
More articulate as well.
Yeah, and certainly a much more reasonable guy. I'm not saying he's going to win, but he comes across a lot better than any of these. I mean,
but she's got the recognition, and she is going to attract the loud radicals. And apparently the Democratic Party, that's who they listen to.
Well, that's who they've been listening to lately. That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, George, as always, I want to thank you for your time and for your input. Anything that we forgot? Anything that you want to put in about Charlie Kirk or the primary?
No, I think that we covered it pretty much. As far as the Kirk family, our prayers are with them. Yeah. And as far as the future of our state, my prayers are there too.
And I'll tell you what you said about that video and those kids. That's exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. When those kids are old enough to turn on a computer, they're going to see that video, which has to be awful for them to do. George, have a great weekend. Are you speaking anywhere near?
In fact, there is a Charlie Kirk memorial on Sunday here in San Antonio that I've been invited to speak at.
Oh, okay. Where is it going to be at a church or?
It's going to be at it's called the Cowboy Dance Club. It's a large venue, kind of auditorium style, combination of entertainment and it's a large entertainment venue, rodeo, et cetera. But on this occasion, it's going to be turned into an auditorium for the memorial.
And who's sponsoring this?
It's being sponsored by various organizations, current organizations here in town, conservative organizations here in San Antonio.
Well, I tell you, that's well deserved because Charlie had I think a great influence. And what always impressed me the most is the influence he had in young people and how he was able to go to universities and talk to young people and get these young people to think, which is honestly necessary. All right, George, thank you so much for your time as always. And we will chat again. Thank you for your time.
Have a good one.
All right. Thank you so much. Our good friend, George Rodriguez from South Texas. We always enjoy chatting with George and just getting the Texas perspective that he has. Obviously, Charlie Kirk was the topic today, but we talked a little bit about this primary coming up in March. And believe me, between now and March, a lot of these numbers are going to change, and there's a lot is going to be going on. But it is fascinating that on the Democrat side, you could have 4 people running, which is going to probably mean they're going to have to go to a runoff. And in the case of O'Rourke, he's not announcing. Jasmine Crockett is not announcing. The only two who have announced are having to come in 3 and 4. But I think if Colin Allred can come out of the runoff, I think he probably has the best shot at winning the Democrat nomination, because I mean, he hopefully has learned from his last campaign when he got defeated by Ted Cruz that this Texas is not Washington D.C. and Allred, and I said this before, has a lot of potential. He's a good guy, a reasonable guy, and if he could move to the center more and run for office more as a center Democrat, I think I'm not saying he's going to win, but he is going to do better than he did the last time when he lost by 9 points to Ted Cruz. That would have been 24 when he ran against Ted Cruz for the U.S. Senate. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.